and welcome to the first episode of Tapping Into It. I am Tristan Tapscott, joined by my little brother,
Ethan Tapscott.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Hey, it's actually going good.
Yeah? That's good.
So the reason it's going good, and I'm just going to throw this out there, is my air conditioner was broken in my car. So I went to get it fixed. But there's a twist to this because it was a faulty product, and I walked out of there paying absolutely nothing to Honda to get a brand new air conditioner in my car.
Fabulous. I just had my car in the shop, did not have the same outcome, but my power steering pump had gone out. But I didn't know that necessarily because I didn't notice it, but it was starting to go out when I brought it in to change a tire. Well, then come to find out I needed all the tires replaced. So I got a new set of tires, a new pump, and walked out of the dealership a little over $1,000 less.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Bank account. But the father did help me out with the discount. So I feel like I took it to Highland, which I normally don't do.
Yeah.
And so I got a good discount. So it cost me a couple $1,000s less than it probably would have. So,
bonus.
I mean, I guess I went out ahead too a little bit, but it sounds like you got the better deal.
Well, yeah, thankfully, because they're like, well, we have to look at it first to see if it's even covered. So
yeah,
that was my day today.
Well, I'm glad that went okay for you. It's interesting that we started that way because I think part of what this is going to be is us kind of getting to know each other a little bit. And that's going to sound weird to people.
It is.
I'm sure anybody that might be listening be like, aren't you
brothers? Correct.
And we're not that far apart. We're just like 5 years, right?
Yeah, 5 years apart.
5 years. And that seems like it. Well, we're going to get into it. We're going to dig right into that.
We'll get there.
We will get there. But first of all, I kind of wanted to chat a little bit about, why we're doing this and kind of the start of this. Back around Christmas time, you gave me the first half of a manuscript that you had written. And so I read that and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I haven't thought about some of this stuff in a really long time. And maybe I didn't want to, but here I am. And then you gave me the second half.
You're welcome.
Yeah, no, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. My therapist is thankful for the hours. And you gave me the second half when I came down to see you do a sermon at your church. And I hadn't seen you preach in human form ever, I don't think. I had watched several videos and stuff over the years, but I've never been able to make it down. So I was sitting there watching you and thinking, wow, he's really good at this. Obviously you are. Of course, you've been doing it forever. But I was like, man, he has a lot of really great things to say and a lot of really interesting ways to say it and apply it to life. And I was like, I think there are other people that probably could benefit from this. But then I also got to thinking, as you and I have been texting the last couple months, it's a weird thing because I think that I've had more contact with you in the last few months than I have in our whole lives.
Our life.
And come to find out, in a lot of ways, we're very similar. In a lot of ways, we're not. But I think by doing this, I'll get to know you better and you'll get to know me better. And I have a feeling that there are a lot of other people out there that are in similar situations that, their lives were kind of uprooted in one way or the other. And later in life, they're finally getting to know people that they should have known, all of their lives. So that's kind of where we are. And that's what this is. And what we're going to tap into is a lot of things. And there might be some people that may listen to this that will be less than enthused.
We'll try to be polite.
No, exactly. Yeah. But that's kind of where we're at. And, I brought this idea up to you and you seemed pretty down.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I'm coming at it, from that aspect. What are your initial thoughts there?
No, I thought the idea was great. And like you said, we were texting each other and it was just so funny because it was like, hey, like I'm 35, you're 40, and I don't really know you.
I know. And it's not like I didn't take offense to it and I wasn't upset about it necessarily, but I was like, oh, maybe I should try this. I should try to figure this out.
Maybe there's something there.
Yeah.
It might turn into a weird quasi episode of SNL meets an Eddie Murphy, Jim Carrey movie, but you know what? It's fine.
Yeah. It's totally fine. And it's just it's an interesting thing as you get older, I find too, you find yourself questioning a lot of things that may have happened in your past to kind of lead you to where you are or lead you to how you're thinking about something. And I think at the time you don't think about it. And there's many things that I'm kind of like wrestling with now that at the time I was like, okay, well, that's a part of life that I'm dealing with right now. But a lot of it sprang from, reading your manuscript. For hopefully it gets published, by the way. It's really good
I
because,
I hope so, but we'll see.
well, I think something that you do well in it, and obviously we'll talk more about it. Um, but you're able to kind of take, okay, this is something that happened to me, but this is how I applied it to life and how I kind of put a positive spin on it and got something out of it. And I think if anything, that's something you're really good at, is saying, all right, this sucked, but here we go.
Yeah,
And
and honestly, like, man, I have to attribute that to like my faith in Jesus, because like,
sure,
dude, like when some of these things happened, it was just like, no, I'm just like this angry little teenager that hates the world. I'm gonna go listen to my emo music and wear my tight chick pants and call it good, like, and
right.
not really deal with anything. But now just like kind of like what you said, like I look back and I'm like, well, I mean, yeah, that sucked, but let's see what positive things happened from it, or like what people came into my life as a result of it, and like how things turned out the way they did.
Yeah, and something that, and I don't know where this came from, but I think you're good at it. Jared, our other brother, who are inevitably we will get on
He
this.
will sometime
Um,
get on this.
it will happen. We'll have to show him probably how to use a Zoom, but we'll figure that out. But it's just so interesting because we're all so good at, like, we've talked about the pivot, and that's kind of what I'm writing about a lot right now, is how you pivot from one thing to another. When something bad happens, you're like, okay, well, I have to pivot to this next thing. Now that can be a bad thing, as my therapist has told me, but it's also a good attribute. And I imagine, you kind of dealt with that as well. And so I think it's going to be interesting, a very interesting study to see how we have, collectively all kind of done the same thing to deal with all of the things. So, yeah, it's going to be fascinating, I think.
It'll be a very good deep dive, or your therapist is just going to have a lot to listen to and dissect, and
Yeah,
and maybe gain me as a client down the road. You never know.
yeah, you never know. And so, before we get into that, there might be somebody listening to this being like, okay, but who are you humans? Who are you people?
You will
Besides
get
the
to know us.
besides our wives that are listening.
Yeah,
But
and mom, she's going to support us no matter what.
yes, absolutely. And we'll have to get her on that. That could be a very interesting
That'll be an interesting episode.
situation as well. But so yeah, let's start with you, man. Like, let's talk a little bit about who you are, what you do, and kind of how you came to this moment.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the short answer is I am Ethan Tapscott. I go by Tappy a lot since college because the roommate next to me was also named Ethan. And my RA
Oh.
was like, hey, you have a nickname. Guess what? That's your name from now on, which is fine. Which is fine because then I married Emily, and her nephew, who happens to be our age because her mom and her sister did a father of the bride type of thing. His name is Ethan. So now I'm Tappy by that whole family. And like half the church calls me Tappy. And usually I'm just like, if you like nicknames, go for it. If not, I still answer to Ethan or hey you with the face. So
Sure. Hey, you with the
yeah,
face is
hey
always a
you
good
with the
one.
face
Yeah.
works great. But I've been in full-time ministry now for over 10 years. Like at my current job, I think I'm in year 8, which is
Oh,
just
wow.
wild, man. Like last year I got no, I'm in year 9 because in year 8 I got a sabbatical. So I got my a 7
Oh,
week
right.
sabbatical to take off and like refresh. And that's kind of the linchpin of what started me down this whole like maybe I should write a book about that idea of taking rest and like actually, like not burning
Mhm.
yourself out and running yourself
Yeah,
into the ground. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I've been married for 13 years. It'll be this December, 13 years, which is
that's bonkers.
wild.
That is
Just
bonkers.
absolutely insane. I got married at 22, dude. Like I
Yeah.
was a kid.
Yeah, you're the youngest of us, but have been married the longest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm paving the way for you guys. It's okay. It's okay. You were late bloomers. It's all right.
We'll
It's all
figure
right.
it out. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
It's all good. You both have great wives.
We do.
Things are going good.
Yeah.
But Yeah, and I'm a musician. I'm a worship pastor at a church, and what that means for anyone who is not in the church world is I do all of the music, and our church has two different types of services. So like we have one where it's like piano and hymns, like old school like hymn book, but we put them on the screen so we don't have the book anymore, but like old
Mhm.
school like public domain, they're so old songs.
Oh
And
yeah.
then we have like the full rock band where we've got like a whole horn section, we've got some trumpets and saxophones. We have a violinist now, which is pretty awesome. Um, and on top of all the music, sometimes I'll preach, like Tristan had mentioned earlier.
Mhm.
I have done funerals. I have performed weddings. I actually did your wedding.
Yes, you did.
Um,
Thank you very
yeah, no problem. Anytime, you know. And let's see what else. Oh, I do all of the technology. So like live stream, anything with the app, the
much.
website. Um, and a lot of it is just kind of figure it out on the fly. They're like, "Hey, you're young. You are familiar with the technologies and the socials." So, and yeah, so I'm like, "Yeah, sure. I'll figure that out. Let me go watch a YouTube video and figure it out or talk to somebody." So I think that's kind of where I'm at right now.
That's
Did I,
great.
did I
That's
leave
great.
anything out? Anything you want to know? Any mysterious things you would like to ask?
I don't think so. I think you covered a lot of it. I now know where the nickname comes from. I had a feeling it had something to do with Ethan's nephew because I knew that she had a nephew named Ethan as well.
Yeah. Well, and I
Um,
mean, it's a family nickname because like Jared has some people that calls him Tappy, and
yeah,
like so it's kind of been around, but
sure.
like that's where it like got cemented for me was
Now
college.
you've claimed it. Yeah.
I have claimed I actually introduced myself as Tappy. Like I think even my like social handles like say Ethan Tappy Tapscott or something, but I don't know. Maybe eventually I'll just go straight to Tappy and then eventually become a symbol because you know Prince did it and why not?
The only person ever called me Tappy was some friends of mine when we were doing a production of Rent. I had fell on a set of stairs and hurt my hip because I'm old. I wasn't even old then, but
I
they
think
started calling
yeah.
me They started calling me Grandpappy Tappy
Grandpappy
because
Tappy.
I was limping around for like a couple days. So I guess yeah, that's kind of just has affected us all a little bit, I guess. Um, but as for me, who I am Tristan, of course. I've worked in entertainment for over 20 years, which is kind of crazy to think about now.
That is nuts.
Um, as a professional actor, which has been so cool that I've been able to do that. Um, and I ran some theaters and things like that. And then I took on a job almost 2 years ago hosting a midday talk show randomly. And so now I produce and host this talk show that airs in our region on the local CBS, Fox, and CW affiliates. It's kind of strange and a weird thing to do, but
Dude, it
it's
fits you though.
kind of cool, and
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it. And it's entertainment's such a wide field, and so there's so many things that you can kind of do with a personality. And so all the while I've been doing that, I've still been employed as an actor as well, on stage and sometimes on screen. And I have a lovely daughter, Harper, who just turned 10.
That's
And
wild.
I know her name is Harper Lee, after the author. And my wife Savannah is an actress as well, and we live here in the Quad Cities. And her and I've been together for 5 years, and we going on 2 years of marriage here in the fall, which is also crazy. And yeah, and here we are. We're chatting, and I also I host a Disney centric podcast, which is kind of why I brought this up because the success we've had over there. I was like, oh, this is also an interesting thing. And also, dude, I know you do too. I listen to so many podcasts.
I
You know,
commute 5 hours a week, and I think
right,
I like broke that down. It's like 14 days of my life every year. I'm just in my car.
right.
The math could be wrong. It's okay. I'm a musician. I can only count to six, so give me some breaks.
You
But
should be able to count to eight as a musician. Come on now.
well, you know, six, eight. But you know, really, I'm just going to six. Um, but yes. So
Yeah,
yeah, so many podcasts, and like we throw them back and forth all the time. You're like, if you listen to this one, I'm like, nope, but I'm going to.
right. And so, and like every time you go to the Global Leadership Summit, somehow I end up with like three or four more that I'm listening to.
I can't
So,
keep up with it. The amount of books that I buy that I'm like, well, that's just going into the stack of things I'm currently reading is ridiculous.
right.
But the
I have
leadership
that same
insights I
problem.
get from there, like this is a shameless plug for the Global Leadership Summit, but if you have not heard of it, it's in Chicago, it's in August, it's amazing.
Yeah, I love watching you and Emily's. I live vicariously through you when you go, and it's always really good content. But here we are chatting about this, and I think it's going to be such an interesting deep dive into, because we've gone through similar things, but then there was a period of time where our paths separated, and we've gone through very different things.
Yes.
And I think that's a fascinating thing to kind of dissect eventually, because our lives were very much different from that point on. And it's interesting because at the time, I didn't think about it too much. Like at the time, I was like, well, this is odd. But now that I look back on it, I'm like, this was a big deal that I should have like
Yeah.
been waving some red flags about. But at the time, I was just trying to. I think it was because it was a survival thing.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. I was like, dude, it's survival mode. That's all there
It is
was.
yeah, it's survival mode, and it's all about that pivot that we were just talking about. I think even before I knew what I was doing, I was just like, okay, this is the reality. Okay, great. Well, pivot over here. We'll pivot to the right. We'll deal with this, and we'll move on, and we'll carry on. And because I don't know that there was a choice, really. You know, when you're,
No,
I mean, you were what?
I was
You
11
were
and you were 16.
11?
Like, we don't have choices. Like,
No.
we're just pawns in this great game that's orchestrated by a judge. Like,
Well, yeah, that too. And also, if you, it's interesting to talk to our parents about it now because it's been so long. You know, really,
oh,
it's been over 20
yeah.
years now, almost a quarter of a century, which is bonkers. But
yeah, that's insane.
And to hear different accounts on it is because, like, you have an account on it, I have an account on it, Jared does, and our parents both do too.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, everyone was living through it in their own way and like trying to
Yeah,
survive in their own way. So like we've all got our own truth, so to say, of like,
it's like flashbulb memories, is I think is what they call it. Like, you know what I mean? There are, and I find it fascinating. I'm not saying anybody's right and anybody's wrong, of
oh yeah.
course, but it's interesting how we survive it and how we deal with it because it is such an interesting thing. Um, and you know, we won't deep dive into that on this first episode and scare anybody because we want people to come back and listen. But you know, I guess moving forward, you know, what are you hoping to accomplish beyond, you know, obviously getting to know each other is a cool thing that we're going to share with the people that listen to this,
with
I
the
guess.
world, you know, all two of you
With
out
the
there. It's
world,
fine.
with all with
Yeah.
our wives. But yeah, I guess, you know, what are you hoping to garner from this?
Well, but number one, like just getting to know my brother more. Like I think that's awesome. But also like just kind of dissecting whatever topic we're going to tackle, whether it like maybe a listener's going to throw out a topic for us, or we're going to
Yeah.
have a guest family member on the show or something. I don't know. Like it'll just be really fun to just see our two personalities come together and like see what kind of beauty or chaos we can make, or, you know, beautiful chaos we can make
Absolutely.
in the in between. What about you?
And I know we're not alone. You know what I mean? I know that there's other people that have dealt with similar things and are probably in similar situations. And you know, I love listening to podcasts and I love listening to people kind of work things out as they go. And I think it's going to be a fascinating experiment, you know, to just see how this unfolds.
Yeah, and I mean, some of it's going to be scripted, and some of it's just going to be hit play and see what happens.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of what we've done today.
Exactly. But it's the deep dive. We're just putting the toe in the water. It's fine.
Right. We're just trying to figure out what it is, and it's going to be great. And, you know, I think it's going to be fascinating. And, you know, if you're listening to this on some kind of podcast platform, you're going to want to subscribe to this one because I think it's going to be, like you said, beautiful chaos. And I think that's going to be a really cool thing.
And
So,
you know, we're gonna try and throw the videos on YouTube. So if you wanna look at these beautiful faces and just
yeah.
see how
Yeah.
overly animated we can be, you know, subscribe to the YouTube channel too. It's fine.
Yeah.
You know,
Why not? I mean, what do you got to lose? Nothing.
a
You got nothing to lose.
couple minutes of your life.
Right.
You're stuck in the freeway. It's fine.
Well, I think for the first little episode of this, I think that's a great place to kind of like leave on a cliffhanger
Oh
because
yeah,
nobody
yeah.
knows what's going to happen.
Not even us.
Not even us. And that's the beauty of it, the whole thing. And who knows, you know, what we're going to tap into.
That, that is the plan, tapping into it.
Mm-hmm. That is the plan. So, hey, this has been fascinating, and I'm excited to see where this goes. I think it's going to be super fun. And I hope that if you're listening right now, that you come back and listen again, because it's about to get real, I think.
About to go down. So, hey.
It is going.
Thanks for tapping into it with us. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, take care.